All right, so here's a weird one for you. What could cutting-edge neuroscience possibly have to do with climate change projections for the year 2100? I mean, on the surface, you'd think absolutely nothing, right? Well, today we're going to connect those exact dots between the air we'll all be breathing and the deepest, most complex wiring inside our brain. So this whole thing kicks off with two brand new studies, and honestly, they feel like they're from totally different scientific universes. The first one, it's looking at the big picture, like planet-sized big. It's all about the actual air quality we're all going to be breathing, decades down the road. And the other study, it goes in the complete opposite direction. We're talking microscopic, zooming way, way in to see how tiny little brain cells handle stress, and what happens when you throw something like alcohol into the mix. So that's the big question for us today, right? What in the world could a future with bad air have to do with the biology of stress inside our skulls? Turns out the answer is, well, it's a really powerful story and honestly a super important one for the challenges we're all looking at. Okay, so let's start with that big picture problem, our environment. There's this pretty startling new study out of the University of Waterloo, and it gives us a peek into what the air we depend on might be like in the future. Get this. By the year 2100, they're projecting that 100 million people in the US alone will be living in places where the air is officially unhealthy for sensitive groups during smog season. To put that in perspective for you, that's almost 1 out of every 3 Americans. And what's just, wow, is the jump. We're not talking a little bump here. We are talking a 7-fold increase from just 14 million people back at the turn of the century. It just shows how something that used to be kind of rare could become a daily reality for so many people. And this quote from Dr. Rebecca Sari, the study's lead author, really hits home. She says that for some people, it could be like a daily coin flip, 50-50 odds, on whether it's a good air day or a bad one. I mean, just imagine that, having to check an alert every single day to see if it's even safe to go outside. That's a world with a whole lot more constant background stress just built right into it. Okay, so we've got this huge external problem, right? A world that's just physically more stressful. Now, let's make that pivot. Let's go from our lungs and dive deep into our brains. And this is where that second study comes in. So if the outside world is throwing all these extra challenges at us, how does our internal hardware, our brain, actually cope with it? Or maybe fail to cope? Well, to get that, we need to look at how the brain's natural stress system is supposed to work, and some researchers at Texas A&M just figured out a really critical piece of this puzzle. It all kicks off with this chemical called corticotropin-releasing factor. We'll just call it CRF. The best way to think about CRF? It's basically the brain's main alarm bell. A challenge pops up, and bam, CRF gets released to get your brain ready for action, firing on all cylinders. So the alarm bell rings. Where does that signal go? It heads to these really special cells called cholinergic interneurons, or CINs. And these CINs are so cool. Think of them like the traffic controllers for your brain, especially in the part that deals with habits and choices. Their entire job is to help you stay flexible and make good decisions when the pressure's on. And this is the key point right here. A normal, healthy stress response is actually supposed to help you. Something stressful happens, the CRF alarm goes off, it wakes up those traffic controller cells, and they help you take a breath, think things through, and make a smart call. It stops you from just defaulting to some old, rigid habit. So yeah, believe it or not, stress is supposed to make us more adaptable. But, and this is a big but, this is where the whole story takes a sharp turn. What happens when you introduce a substance like alcohol into this finely tuned system? Well, this new research shows it completely hijacks the whole process. I mean, just look at this side by side. On the one hand, you've got the healthy response we just talked about, but on the other, you see what alcohol does. It's like it just snips the wire. It blocks that CRF alarm signal from getting to the traffic controllers. And when that happens, the brain loses that flexibility. It makes it way, way more likely that you'll just fall back on an automatic behavior, like, for instance, reaching for another drink. And this isn't just some abstract science thing, This has huge real-world consequences. It helps explain exactly why stress is such a massive trigger for people recovering from alcohol use disorder. When your brain's natural way of coping with stress is short-circuited like this, one stressful moment can push someone right back into those old, rigid habits. It becomes a really vicious cycle. Okay, so let's zoom back out for a second and see how this all fits. Now we can finally put those two puzzle pieces together. the environmental study, and the neuroscience study.
And this is really the whole story in a nutshell. On one side, we're looking at a future with more frequent external stressors, like a world with worse air quality. On the other side, we have a substance that hijacks our brain's internal ability to deal with that very stress. These two problems don't just add up, they multiply each other, creating this compounding public health crisis.
Which, of course, leaves us with a pretty big question to chew on, doesn't it? As our external world becomes more demanding and as we better understand how our internal coping mechanisms can be disrupted, what do we do? How do we, as individuals and as a society, build the resilience we need to navigate a future where both our world and our brains are under increasing pressure?